Okay, so we left you with David. Woo! And David was going to go check on his brothers. Okay, so David as a shepherd sitting under a tree, minding his own business, when far away there was Goliath, and he was saying, "You stinky people, you don't know what you're doing, and you got to come fight me. And here I stand with my spearsmen and my torch thingy bear, my armor bearer. And I'm going to yell at you, and I'm going to say terrible things about you, and I'm just going to keep going on and on and on because you're just too wimpy and you won't come find out." So that's when the brother David finds a note from his dad that says, "Go check on your brothers, take them bread and corn and cheese." Okay, so that's what he does. So he goes off, leaves his sheep taken care of nicely, and then he goes off, okay, to go find his brothers. And he comes up and he sees, oh, here we go. Here's the place to leave off all of our food, the food at, and this is for the captains, the cheese is for the captains, and this is the bread for my brothers, and where's everybody at? And that's when he hears, "You are doing terrible. You don't know what you're doing. Come fight me." And so he hears Goliath yelling behind. He's like, "What is going on?" And he goes over to the battle and he's like, "What's happening?" And he hears Goliath, and Goliath saying all these terrible things about God's army, and he's saying terrible things about God. And David's just going like, "What's wrong with you people? Why aren't you doing something about this? Why isn't somebody fighting him? Send somebody over here to fight me, and I will take them down." And why isn't somebody going over there? Well, apparently one of David's brothers, Eliab, he hears him and he gives his brother a look like, "Crazy kid, what are you doing here? You need to come over here. You're causing trouble being here. Your name's supposed to be here. Who's taking care of the sheep? Why don't you just go back home, you little know-it-all?" I mean, after all, he's a much younger brother. And his brother's saying like, "Well, why are you all standing around? Why don't you go take care of this guy?" And so the brothers are feeling bad, like, that's a big, huge guy over there. And David is just not having it. No, he is not happy at all. He is pretty upset that nobody is going out there and challenging this guy, that he is out there saying all of these terrible things about God and about God's army, and they're sitting around not doing anything about it. And it's really upsetting to David. And so he's like, "No way, this is not going to happen." He says, "I'm going to go out there and I'm going to take care of it. I'm looking for the place." He says, "Who is this wicked Philistine anyway? And why is he allowed to defy and bring shame into the armies of the living God? I would be willing to fight him." Well, somebody finds out about that. They hear David talking, and they go and tell Saul, "Hey, Saul, there's a guy that's willing to go out and do some fighting." And he's like, "Well, bring him to me." So they go and get David. King Saul wants to see you. And David's like, "Well, fine, I'm going to go see." And so he goes in to see King Saul. And he says, and David comes in and he's like, King Saul's like, "Oh," and he's thinking in his head, "Oh, this is a young person. This is a little tiny guy. This isn't one of my soldiers at all. Who are you?" He says, "Well, I'm David." He says, "I came to bring my check on my brothers from my father, send them a message from my father and give them something to eat. And I brought something for the captains. And I hear this guy up here talking. Why are you letting him talk like that? Why is anybody going out and fighting him?" "I'm going to go out and fight him." He says, "I'll go out and fight him. I'd be willing to fight the giant." And so he's like, "No, young man, I'm going to need somebody with a little bit more strength." And so David says, "Well, you don't know who I am. I worship God, and I know with God I can do anything because nothing is impossible with God. And I've already killed a lion and a bear that tried to attack my sheep, and I just tore them all apart, and I took care of them, and I can take care of this guy." So King Saul thought about it for a little bit. "All right, then, go right ahead. Let me get you ready." And so this is what happens. Now, so King Saul has a bunch of armor and stuff. We talked about Goliath's armor. Okay. We talked about how he's got the helmet and then this shield, and he's got a back, and then he's got coverings for his feet, and he's got his spear, and he's got stuff behind him, and he's got all this stuff. He's got somebody carrying a big shield for him. So he's got all this stuff. Okay. King Saul has all this stuff too. And when it's made to fit you. All of these soldiers, their armor was made to fit them. And so this only fit Goliath. So King Saul's shields and helmets and all that kind of stuff. Can you imagine? Okay. Have you ever put on maybe mom's clothes or dad's clothes? Okay. I know when I was a little girl, I used to play dress up. And that's basically what happens. So you put on mom's shirt or dad's pants, and they're way too long, and you're dragging around. That's the idea here. Okay, imagine that. So you got David. David might have been about my height, maybe a little shorter than me. Okay, and he put on King Saul's armor and his helmet. I imagine the helmet was all wibbly wobbly. I imagine that the armor to cover him probably weighed way too much. I mean, King Saul's, got big muscles, and David, I mean, he's a shepherd, but I don't think he had super strong, big muscles. So all of this stuff was just weighing him down. His body's not made to hold all of this. And so they get him all ready, and he says, "No way, King, I am sorry, but I am not going to be able to wear any of this. This is not going to fit for me." He says, "Well, how are you going to go out and defend yourself? How are you going to protect yourself?" He says, "I have God on my side." That is where we stop today, and we'll find out what happens.